Welcome to the Inside Out podcast. I'm your host, Jojo, and this is where we will navigate the mess together. That is mental, emotional, and spiritual. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Happy Wednesday. If you're new here, thank you for joining. And if you are listening every week, I really appreciate your Wednesday mornings or whenever you hear this. Last week, I brought back an old episode called Friendship, Toxic or Transformative. And I brought that back because I'm looking at a lot of friendships in my life currently and how making new friends as an adult or just in general is such an interesting process. We grow up and we are thrown into proximity based on our parents' choices. We go to schools that our parents choose. We make friends because they're around us, but we don't necessarily sometimes always keep those friends. I mean, sometimes we definitely do, don't get me wrong, but we didn't choose those people. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying later in life you don't keep choosing them. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you're an adult, you start to surround yourself with people who are in similar circles, have similar interests, like-minded, or you meet people randomly and they fall into your life in like the most bizarre ways and they become lifelong friends. What's interesting though, as someone who has moved around her whole life, I'm noticing the evolution of friendships more consciously as I get older. And what I'm noticing is that it's really hard to make friends as an adult. Can anyone relate? And it's also hard to maintain friendships because people go into different seasons of their life. People evolve, people change, people start having families, getting married, buying houses. And all of a sudden, you're not running around at recess anymore in 6th grade with people doing the exact same thing as you and going to your sports after school or dance classes that you're doing. Now you have a whole new life and a completely different trajectory and different careers and then different friend groups. You probably chose different colleges and the tree just keeps on growing. The branches keep on getting more and more spread out and more branches grow and more leaves come off. And it's very interesting because what I've noticed is when you try to make plans with friends, it's like, oh yeah, what are you doing next year on this random Thursday? It's not like, hey, let's catch up next week. It's like when you live across the country from them, you have to pencil them. It's a process. And it's also a process to maintain those friendships because at the end of the day, like any relationship, it needs to be nurtured. It needs to be cultivated, it needs to be watered, and it needs to grow and have room to do so. And that's also very difficult. So I want to start off by talking about making friends. Now, just from my own personal lens, as I've mentioned many times, I've just moved. I left New York. I was there for almost 11 years and had a bunch of friends, spent my entire 20s in New York. And I had a really good group of people there. And ever since leaving, I'm noticing how those friendships have evolved and changed. And not in a bad way, just noticing. The communication drops off. It's, not as convenient anymore. And you have to keep actively choosing those people. And now having moved to a completely new place, a new city where I don't know anyone, and what I do for work, outside of this podcast, of course, I'm barely ever home. So even cultivating and growing friendships in this space and in this new city is very difficult because I'm not here much. And for instance, I really had to break this apart and think about it because if I'm not around And people keep asking me to connect, get together, catch up, go on a first friend date. And I'm not around, they're going to start to drop off because you can make a really great connection. But if you don't continue to build upon that connection, it's just going to be a fleeting moment in time. And that's what kind of made me a little bit sad, because I come back to this beautiful place and this choice that I've made and this city that I want to be in. And yet I don't have that group of people that I'm like, all right, when I'm back, I can just, fall back into step, because I'm having to build that from the ground up again. And if I'm not around to, see these people consistently, it's very difficult to do that. And I had to kind of give myself a stern talking to and look at my life and say, is this worth it? Is me leaving for work and working as much as I can and not being home and not being available, is that worth me not being able to have a life to come home to? And the answer was no. And it actually made me stop and say, maybe I need to dial it back on, where I'm putting my energy right now and really focus in and cultivate and build and grow and nurture these new relationships. Because if I don't do that, then I'm not going to have any relationships in my new surroundings, my new area, my new life. When I left New York, like I said, I left a big friend group, a bunch of friends. And also when I left, to move to New York, I left a bunch of friends. And when you leave, nurturing those relationships that you leave and staying connected is really important. But people have lives. People are busy. And it's not going to always be easy. And I'm noticing in myself where it's like, oh, we've kind of dropped off on communication. But maybe you haven't. I've noticed throughout the years that I can go years sometimes without speaking to someone, and then, or even, seeing them, and then you just pick up right where you leave off. And now that's a beautiful thing, and that's not very common, I understand. And yet, maybe that is the expectation that needs to be had. Because if we put a lot of pressure on the people that we are friends with to keep showing up for us consistently, when certain seasons change, maybe they're getting married, maybe they're having a baby. When those things happen, or changing jobs or changing career, whatever it is, when those things happen, you can't just expect things to stay the same. There's going to be a natural course correction and change. But now me having, witnessed this so many times over the past, my whole life, to be honest, it's where does the line come from it being personal to it being just the season? Now, I always think about this phrase, the reason, a season, or a lifetime phrase, where someone's either in your life for a reason, that could be to come and course correct you and put you on your path that you need to be on. A season, meaning just very proximity wise, you lived in the city, it's very transient, you were friends and then you kind of moved on with your lives and it was great and it was fine. Or a lifetime where you have those really, really deep rooted connections with people that just don't break. And I've had to get honest with myself. A lot of people have just been a season. And while that is really, really hard to be okay with and to navigate, you can't take everyone with you. Because the moment that you try to put everyone on your back and take them to your next place, your backpack, whatever you're holding on to, is just going to get heavier and heavier and heavier. The people that come with you into different seasons of your life, the lifetime friends, they're not holding you back. They're not dimming your light. They're not toxic. And unfortunately, a lot of us have pretty toxic people around us. And I'm saying that very blatantly, and I understand that I'm doing that. I'm saying it for a reason, because there are people, in our immediate circles that we have a kind of a guilty conscience about, spending time with them, or it's hard to spend time with them, or they have a very different lifestyle than you and you're trying to adjust and course correct and change. And maybe it's like, for instance, every single time you go out with this friend, like you're drinking and you want to be healthier or not drink as much or anything. But this is the one person, and maybe they've been around you for years, but it just doesn't fit your season of life now. So where does that leave the friendship? I think friendship is a really tricky topic because it takes a lot of reflection and internal, diagnosis. Because as we evolve and change, other people are also going to evolve and change, except we don't see or hear their, day-to-day thought processes and their entire course. So we take it personally. Now, I want to ask you why. Why do you think you take it personally? Because it's not so much about you. I mean, think about it. The friends that you don't have anymore, it had nothing to do with like anything really going wrong. I mean, maybe, of course, there are the instances where someone really, really messes you over. However, usually it's just kind of you drift apart. And it's like, it was like, we were friends because I was in that city or, because we're going to the same places and da-da-da-da-da. But, nothing ever really happened. It's just, we just went in different directions. And that's just, it is what it is. Like, it's cool. Like, we're fine, but it's just fine. But then you have the friendships that were the deep ones. The really, really close ones. And I'm not sure if any of you listening have gone through a friend breakup, but I have. And I have in the last year. And this was someone I was extremely close with. Like, reading each other's minds type of close. However, maybe that was too much. Maybe that was too codependent. Maybe that was too reliant on each other because it didn't allow us to really truly be our own people. I mean, we were our own people, of course, but there was just such an interconnectedness. When one of us wanted to adjust and course correct or change, the other one wasn't really able to grasp it. And so that makes it really hard to maintain that connection, which is really sad. Looking back, of course, it's needed. And it needed to happen, and things needed to adjust and shift and change and, more or less evolve. Now, I don't know what the end relationship of this person and I is, but I know that they're not in my life, at least currently. And that's okay. Because sometimes people need to go down their own path and figure out their own needs. And it's even in like a romantic relationship. I mean, think about it. If you're with someone and things aren't going very well and you need to like take a step back, sometimes you need to take a step back to reevaluate and then you come back together and you're stronger. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen or not going to happen. I'm just saying this is my specific journey right now. Now, because of the closeness that I had with this person for a very long time, many, many years. I knew them my entire time in New York, like basically since day one. Looking at friendships now and building new friendships, it's sad in a way because you had someone that was really, really close to you and now you're essentially starting over. Now, maybe you're listening to this and you're fresh out of a breakup. And I want to acknowledge that because this is a breakup. While not a romantic one, it's still a very painful one. And romantic breakups are also very, very painful. So take this as you will. I mean, you could be listening to this in the lens of like, I just went through a breakup and I have to start over and date again. Also, very true. But the thing with a friendship breakup is that it gives you perspective of yourself. And if you really look at it, what happened, why it happened, and how you can evolve and change and not put the same pressures on yourself or another person and have different expectations or have no expectations. I mean, no expectations is best. The minute you have expectations on something, that's when everything can really go awry. As we evolve and grow, we outgrow versions of ourselves. We outgrow situations, we outgrow people. And I think we need to be more accepting of that, more accepting of people who need to outgrow us too, and really allow for that space and that readjustment so that we can build stronger in ourselves and our own foundations and talk about it. I mean, no one really talks about friendship breakups. I mean, really, it's like pretty hard. And also, no one really talks about how hard it is to make a good friend and build a friendship that lasts. I think there's a lot that goes into this, and that's why I wanted to kind of break this open a little bit and share, where I'm at. Because friendship loss is real, and we don't really grieve that the same way we grieve other loss. But there needs to be an acknowledgement and an awareness about it, and that it's okay, and that it's not your fault, and that just brushing it under the rug and acting like it's not there is not going to help. And maybe understanding why it ended is important. And maybe that closure and that conversation of what's going on and why the friendship isn't there anymore needs to happen. That's going to be subjective and really, kind of personal to each situation. But for instance, I never had closure. I've had 2 big friendship breakups in my life. People that I thought, again, would be in my life forever. They're not in my life. But I never really understood why. I still don't. And that's a lot of internal work that I probably still need to do in order to understand. I mean, I've definitely looked at parts of myself and been like, okay, well, this, and this. Or maybe I was whatever way with them and they, couldn't handle it or whatever. I was too much of X, Y, and Z. Or maybe it's just having that conversation and getting that clarity. But in order to make friends, you really have to put yourself out there. You really have to be open. I mean, there's Bumble BFF out there now. There's, these meetups. There's choosing friends in proximity to us because of choices that we made, not choices our parents made, choices we made. And maybe that is easier because you're being around like-minded people and you're able to really sink into yourself, and therefore you're building authentic connections because you're doing things that you like, that other people like, so you're building those relationships. But then it's time, and not expecting it to just be an overnight success. You really have to spend time with these people. You really have to do things. You have to be honest. You have to be transparent. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be open and not carry fear or pain or anything. I mean, think about when you leave an ex-partner. If you're carrying all your baggage from that last relationship into the new one and start projecting it all over them, how successful is that going to be? These are all lessons. Everyone's a reflection. Everyone is a lesson. And I think just having that awareness and that acuity around this is like really important, because as people change and grow and evolve, I've said that 19,000 times now, we are going to do the same. And having that malleability for both to be true and okay and room for that, instead of being rigid and stuck in our ways and expecting everything to be a certain way that it always was, that's not really life. So let's get messy with this, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I want you to ask yourself, mentally, is there a friendship in your life that has changed or that you've outgrown? That's a tough one. Emotionally, are you actually grieving the person, the history, or what could have been when you're letting this friendship go? And spiritually, what did this friendship come into your life to teach you? Because it wasn't for no reason. And now, ask yourself, just as a little, bonus, what kind of friend do you want to be right now? Not just find, but be. Well, you guys, I know that was a little bit of a deep one, and I hope it gives some insight, some clarity. Maybe you're asking yourself some questions you haven't really had the answers to, but I hope that really breaks something open for you, because the deeper that I get into my new life, the more I'm thinking about this and the more I'm talking to people in my life about this and realizing that other people are thinking the same things and really wondering how and what can I do and how do I, really keep old relationships from a different era of my life while also building new ones. And maybe it's just as simple as picking up the phone and calling someone, or catching up, or making space for that person, or truly just, next year on the calendar, putting something on it. Because friendships are really, really foundational. Connection is really important. So don't let things just dissipate if they are quality. Build new friendships. Find people in the same sphere as you. Grow with those people, transform with those people, evolve. That's the whole point. And with that, I hope you guys have a great week. Hope you had a lovely 4th of July whenever you're listening to this. And I'll see you guys next week. Remember to follow @InsideOut.podcast. Share this episode with a friend, even the one that you might need to break up with. Just kidding. Or maybe, I don't know. And make sure you subscribe to the Substack, because I send a lot of information out from there. A lot more to come, you guys, and I'm excited to keep growing, evolving, and changing with you. Stay messy. Bye.